This episode is brought to you by CoolStuffInc.com, the #1 seller of games and gaming accessories. And GatheringMagic.com, the #1 resource for Magic the Gathering news and articles.
Hi, I'm Josh, and this is my Shirei, Shizo's Caretaker deck. So, let's start with Shirei himself. Shirei is a converted cost 5, 2/2 legendary black spirit. Now, that doesn't sound too powerful, but his ability kind of makes the deck, which is, whenever a creature dies and goes to your graveyard, if it had a power 1 or less, you can bring it back into play at the next end step. So, I mean, that's a pretty powerful ability, but it's also a pretty big restriction. I mean, how do you make power 1 creatures contend against, like, the most overblown and overpowered creatures that ever existed in the history of Magic? Well, hopefully this deck is going to show a bit of those creatures off. So, because I'm running power 1 creatures, I can get away with a pretty tight land base, which is going to end up being 36, starting off with 19 swamps. Wherever the end of them is. I think it's right there. And the first non-basic out of the gate is going to be Rogue's Passage. It's mainly there to make Shirei unblockable after I've gone a few rounds with a Blade of the Bloodchief on him. We have Mystifying Maze, because I'm a bit too cheap for a Maze of Ith, and it does a pretty good job of stripping those nice little auras that everyone likes to slap on their creatures. Phyrexian Tower, a sack outlet on a land, is something that I always appreciate, and being able to make 2 black off of it is very nice as well. Volrath's Stronghold, because I can't always have Shirei out, and I can't always get creatures back with Shirei. Shizo, Death's Storehouse. Well, I can't play Shirei and not run Shizo. It's going to be giving Shirei fear, and I think it's got another target later in the deck, which is a bit more of a bear to deal with. Reliquary Tower, because I'm playing mono black, which means I'm going to be drawing a lot of cards, and I'd rather keep that pretty big grip that I build up. Spawning Pool, a nice little man land that I believe comes back with Shirei. Bojuka Bog, a bit of graveyard hate. I don't have a whole lot in the deck, and I don't run anything like Crucible of Worlds or a land sack to continuously get this back and exile people's graveyards, but it's still a nice little one-shot thing. Temple of the False God and Ancient Tomb. I like the lands that tap for 2, and I can usually get away with not tapping Ancient Tomb for 2 damage, because by then I just have plenty of other stuff and it doesn't make me tap it. I don't have to tap it, because I'm playing power 1 creatures. So, High Market is going to be another sack outlet on a land that's going to get me some life. And here's Miren the Moaning Well right after it. It's going to get me more life whenever I sack a creature, but I gotta pay that heavy little 3 cost on it. Urborg, this is probably the most political card in the deck. It's going to be stripping that Swamp Walk off of Shieldred that sees so much play, and First Strike is also a pretty common ability. What would mono black be without a Cabal Coffers? And right behind it is the Viscera and Thespian Stage to copy that Cabal Coffers. And finally we have Urborg, Tomb of Yawgmoth, because you can see that I run so many non-basics, I'd like for them to count as swamps as well. Alright, so there go the lands. We're going to get into some artifacts now. First up is Soul Ring, a card I don't think anyone was surprised to see in this deck. Expedition Map is a pretty nice card in this deck. I've got all those non-basics, especially Cabal Coffers that I want to get out of my deck, and Expedition Map is going to help me fetch those up. Meek Stone is a champ card in this deck. I've got so many creatures that are under power 3, and so many other people's creatures are power 3 or greater, so this is going to either keep them tapped down or make them very hesitant to attack because they're not going to get to untap them. Blade of the Bloodchief is a nice little equipment because I'm going to be killing so many creatures of mine and then hopefully killing people's creatures as well. And that's just going to rack up counters really, really, really fast and make something like Shirei or any other creature that I slap on a really big beater. We have Skull Clamp. Now this is a bit of an odd looking include because you'll say, well, you're putting creatures above power 1. You don't really want to do that. They won't come back. Well, this is mainly here to clamp tokens. I can also slap it on something like a Reassembling Skeleton and turn that into a pay 3, draw 2. So I'm keeping her in for now, but I don't think there's really any buts about it. This is a really good card. Scroll Rack. This card is good. I don't think I really have to sing its praises. I'm going to be drawing a lot of cards in other people's turns. I'm going to be fetching lands in other people's turns, and I would like to be able to just throw all that chaff that I don't want away and see what's on the top of my deck. It's a nice card, probably why it's got that uncomfortable price tag. So, now we go into the Shirei Protection Suite. We have Nim Deathmantle. It's not the greatest protection for Shirei. I mean, by bringing him back, you're going to interrupt his own ability. So he's really there. It's really there for the semi-recursion and the +2/+2, which is really important because Elish Norn is a huge thing that hoses this deck. Next up is Lightning Greaves. That 0-equip Shroud is super important. Darksteel Plate is probably my favorite equipment for Shirei. Champion's Helm, there's that more important +2/+2. Hexproof. This came in and took out a Whisper Silk Cloak because of the lower equip cost, and hexproof. So, alright, that's all the stuff that I can use to protect Shirei, but now we're going to go into some other good artifacts. We have Oblivion Stone, and the last two are going to be the altars, Phyrexian and Ashnod's Altar. They're going to be able to turn my creatures into mana. I'm going to be able to turn that mana into more creatures, to turn those into more mana, to turn them into more spells. And these are also going to help very much when I'm trying to activate abilities on other people's turns. So, there go my artifacts. Now, we are into the enchantments. So we're going to start with Phyrexian Reclamation, another one of those things that I have to use when Shirei isn't online, or I'm killing things that are bigger than Shirei can bring back. Gate to Phyrexia is a really important enchantment because, as most mono-black players would tell you, one of the big things they have problems with is artifact and enchantment removal. And this is going to let me sack a creature on my upkeep to destroy target artifact. So, you can only do it once, but usually that'll get the one problem artifact that I see out of here. Gate to Phyrexian Arena. I'm reading the old cards here. So, 1 card for 1 life is a pretty fair cost for me. I think most people would agree. Here's another card draw engine. I can pay 2 and sack a permanent in play, a non-token permanent, and that'll be Infernal Tribute, and I get to draw a card off of that. So it's not just creatures, I can sack lands, artifacts, you give me something unfriendly, I'll just eat it and draw a card. Here we have the more unfriendly enchantments. We have Mind Slash, which is a sack outlet and targeted hand removal. I don't mind too much that it is sorcery speed, because I'll be able to pretty much peek at whatever person is threatening me the most and just get rid of all the stuff that I don't want to see come out. This card here is a bit unfair, but I'm playing mono black, so I feel like it's okay, and I'm not running the Infernal Darkness. This is Contamination, and it's going to pretty much hose anyone else playing not playing mono black. It's going to make all their lands tap for black, and its only cost of making me sack a creature on my upkeep is something that I can easily do. Attrition, some creature removal, and a sack outlet. So more likely I'm getting much more value than destroying target non-black creature. Grave Pact, because, you know, all my creatures are dying, and I feel like it's only fair that your creatures die too. I just kind of block out the part where my creatures come back. Leyline of the Void. It's going to be a bit more of that graveyard hate that I don't have a whole lot of, and I was hesitant to put this in because a turn 0 leyline puts a really big target over your head. And the last enchantment we have here is Black Market. This is going to be getting really, really big even after one pass around the table. If I get 2 passes around, I'm probably close enough to exsanguinating the whole table. Alright, now we're on to the creatures. This is probably the big point of the deck because they're all the power 1 creatures are the things that make this deck fun. So we're going to start with Heap Doll, my last bit of graveyard hate, I think. Heap Doll is going to be sacking itself to remove target card in a graveyard from the game. I know you could make the argument for Martyr of Bones, but I am not a fan of keeping one open to activate his ability, and I don't like to show black cards in my hand to let other people know what I have coming. So, Viscera Seer is going to help me kind of comb through my deck, make sure the stuff that I draw is the things that I want. Thoughtpicker Witch. She's going to be sniping those tutors that people cast at the end of turns, getting those Liliana fetches as well. And she also combos off, or she can just completely exile a library if I have enough creatures out. Abyssal Gatekeeper. It's kind of a Grave Pact on a stick a bit. He's going to make everyone sack a creature whenever he dies, and he's bitten me in the butt a few times whenever I sack him and then someone else destroys my only other creature, making me sacrifice Shirei. So, even despite that, this guy is really solid, and I like him a lot. Blood Artist. This is a valuable card. If someone's hating on me specifically, I'm just going to be bleeding them dry with every creature that dies. Reassembling Skeleton is not really powerful on his he's not really powerful on his own, but just the ability to bring himself back on his own will, on his own power, is valuable. Soldevi Adnate, and is going to be turning my creatures into more mana to turn into more creatures and turning into more mana, hopefully. This is a very fun card to use. Myr Retriever. This is more here to get stuff back that other people blew up instead of me sacrificing. I mean, people like to blow up my stuff that I protect Shirei with, so I just eat this guy and get that stuff back. Cadaver Imp is going to be a nice little flyer that I can chump with after I use its ability to bring a creature from the graveyard back into my hand. Sorceress Queen, I'm ashamed to admit, is a new include. I was not a huge fan until I actually sat down and really looked at my deck. This is going to be making my stuff that isn't Shirei-able, and Avacyn mainly was the big thing that makes me put this in the deck, because I do not have a whole lot of answers to that other than to making the opponent sack them. Noxious Toad. I've cast this card all of once, and by the time it got back to me, everyone wanted to punch me in the arm, because it makes everyone else discard a card whenever it dies. Scarecrow. I can eat it to draw cards, or I can bring artifact creatures back from the graveyard. Coffin Queen, another bit of recursion. I can get stuff back into the Shirei loop, or I can take your very fun creatures out and have fun with them. Pilgrim's Eye. This is going to be getting me so many swamps, and it's a nice little flyer to chump with as well. Bone Shredder. A nice little terror on a stick that flies, and I can choose to not pay its echo cost to make sure that it dies at each upkeep to get it back at end of turn, or my upkeep to get back at end of turn. And right after that is a big game hunter. Power 4 or greater is something that I'll be able to find pretty easily, and the madness cost is just the icing on the cake. Pawn of Ulamog is not Shirei-able, but his ability is worth it. I'm going to be killing so many of my own creatures that I'm just going to get a truly embarrassing amount of Eldrazi spawn off of them. And here's another token creator in the name of Marsh Flitter. This is going to be a nice little flyer to chump with, and it's going to be making 2 goblins whenever it comes into play. So all that stuff for altars and clamping. Mindless Automaton is a simple remove 2, draw a card. And Dimir House Guard. It's not something I really cast a whole lot. It's more of a transmute for either those 2 creatures or a artifact. Oh no, I don't have any artifacts that cost 4. Just enchantments and spells. And I can get them back with other creature recursion or with other like Gravedigger effects, so I can just keep on reusing them. Sadistic Hypnotist is there to completely maul someone's hand whenever he comes out, because he's just going to sack a bunch of creatures and make a person discard 2 for each one that I ate. Phyrexian Plague Lord is going to be getting around that pesky indestructibility that everyone seems to love. Oh, I took 1 extra there. Harvester of Souls is a pretty new include as well, and I don't know why I haven't put it in earlier. Every time a other non-token creature dies, I get to draw a card. And I'm going to be doing that a lot. It's kind of the theme of the deck. Butcher of Malakir, another Grave Pact on a stick that synergizes with Blade of the Bloodchief. So he's going to be getting huge, or he's going to be making everyone else miserable. Alright. Pentavis is going to be making a lot of tokens, and he's also a combo piece. If you stick a Blade of the Bloodchief on him and you have an Ashnod's Altar out, you can pretty much make as much mana and tokens as you want to, making either a wall that people can't attack through, or just enough fodder to maul someone with all those dying or all those dying triggers. The last creature here is Ulamog. I can hear the groans already, but in my defense, I needed mill protection because mill is something that is played in where I play. It is also a bit of spot artifact and enchantment removal because, as we've said earlier, black needs all of that it can get, and it's mainly used as a deterrent. I just pretty much say, don't attack me unless you want to get attacked by Ulamog. Alright, that was the end of the creatures. Let's get into the spells. We have Demonic Tutor and Diabolic Intent. The two, I'd rather have the Diabolic Intent most of the time. More often than not, I'm going to get much more value out of sacrificing a creature than just searching a card and sacking a creature. Exsanguinate and Profane Command. I love Profane Command because I love modes on spells. Transmute is one of my favorite abilities. So these are mainly my kill spells. Profane Command does a bit more than that. And right after those we have Shred Memory. Shred Memory is going to be transmuting into any of those 2-cost spells that I just revealed. It also has plenty of targets in my creatures and artifacts. And it also acts as 4 cards in a graveyard getting removed from the game if I wanted to. Ashes to Ashes is a nice little, I think it's the only removal in black that I could justify, because exiling 2 target non-artifact creatures for 5 life, that's a pretty fair cost to me. Dimir Machinations will be able to search out that Ashes to Ashes and all that other converted cost 3 stuff, or it's a nice little exile the top 4 cards of target player's library. Insidious Dreams is probably my favorite tutor, just because it's a multi-tutor. You can discard as many cards as you want when you cast it, and search that many cards and put them on the top of your deck. Diabolic Tutor, a fixed demonic tutor. It's a pretty good card. Don't think I have to sing its praises. And here's the board wipes. We have Damnation, Living Death, which is very useful after I've just completely sacked my board and just cast Living Death to switch everything up again. And Decree of Pain. I've actually killed myself with Decree of Pain just to say I could do it. It's rather fun, but this card has definitely won me more games than I've lost. We're almost done here. We're down to the Planeswalkers. We have Liliana Vess, so pretty much there for the -2. The +1's also pretty useful. I've never taken her down 8. And Karn, because as I keep saying, black needs enchantment and artifact hate, and what better than a double Vindicate. I don't think I've ever restarted the game. I've came close, mainly because someone was trying to exile my entire library, but ended up not happening. Still, he's a very solid card, and I'm glad I picked him up when I did. Thanks for watching CMDR decks. Make sure you subscribe and favorite.